When I first met David, he seemed relatively normal. It was within about 6 months to a year after we'd gotten married, and things changed not gradually but drastically. He needed help with what would come naturally. David, you need to eat your dinner. David, you need to put your jacket on. David, you need to go to bed. David, you need to take a shower. And he would be in these what we started calling blackouts, where he just didn't function. He sat there staring off into space. I would talk to his friends or his family like, there's something not right. David's not talking, he can't remember things. And they were like, oh, David's always been that way, or that's just how David is. I essentially had become his caregiver. I went from a new bride to a caregiver in the span of a year.
After we got married, it was a huge change of environment. I was living with my parents at the time, and then got married, and then we moved to a different area. And so it was just a fish out of water feeling.
He had started journaling and asked me not to look in his journal. That was his private thoughts, and so I respected that. I wasn't going to look in his journal, and by happenstance, when I was cleaning in his office, dusting or whatever, I had knocked over that journal, actually the whole shelf. I knocked over the books, and the book landed on its spine and opened. And I looked down, and I saw "Hang Myself." And of course, that immediately got my attention. Everything else in the world just zoned out for me completely. So I picked up the book and read how it wasn't just a thought, it was a plan. I just burst into tears and just sat on the floor holding the book, rereading and rereading and rereading, like, am I misunderstanding this somehow? So I asked him questions, and he had explained to me that suicide was something that he thought about all day and just tried really hard to keep at bay. That's when I was like, okay, I've had enough. The standard merry-go-round of, throwing pharmaceuticals at him isn't going to work.
My mom saw Dr. Amen on a PBS special, and so she found that very intriguing and had me watch it, and I immediately thought, hey, this is really cool. Then she ordered one of his books. It was Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. I read that, and I was just really fascinated by it. So why don't we just get a brain scan just to see what really was going on in there. Walking
into Amen Clinics was almost like a spa because I felt such a sense of relief, just like woof, come over me, and they were very much, we have this all in hand. We got all this. This is exactly what we're doing. They had it all laid out for me perfectly. So my guard was able to come down a little bit. I was able to just trust in what they were doing, and I knew the science would do the rest.
It was pretty mind-blowing just to be able to actually see everything. Dr. Lee had shown me that the basal ganglia was, super overactive.
Essentially on fire.
Yeah. And also there was a lot of activity in the deep limbic system. Everything just made a lot more sense. Like, oh, that's why I couldn't do this, or that's why I would freeze up. So that was just really cool to see, just that there was a reason for it.
It was a real relief because we knew something was wrong, and we knew there wasn't enough. There wasn't going to be one magic pill or two magic pills that was going to say, this is what's wrong with your brain and this is how it's going to fix it. We knew we really had to kind of grab the brain by the horns and try to figure out what was wrong. And so seeing something wrong just kind of validated that our suspicions that something wasn't right. Seeing the SPECT scans and it saying back to us essentially, yes, you were on the right track. Yes, there's something wrong with the brain.
With the SPECT scans, just really being able to see that, it is something physical, and it's something physical and tangible. And once you can see that something is physical, that means you can actually work with it.
A cardiologist doesn't say, well, yeah, your heart's skipping. I think that's arrhythmia. They look at your heart, they do an EKG, they look at it physically, and it just blew my mind how, nobody looks at the physicality of the brain.
Dr. Ellie recommended really just hammering the anxiety first, taking different supplements, it helped reduce the amount of actual medication that I need. And so that really gave me a lot of hope and really gave me a lot of encouragement. The suicidal ideations, they've decreased dramatically just with the therapy and everything I've been doing, and along with the treatment Amen Clinics has provided. I'm really able to talk back and fight back those negative thoughts, and they go away.
He once described his suicidal ideations as like stormy clouds in the sky above his head, and that his whole goal in the day was just not to look up. And by time that we went to Amen Clinics, not only was it storming and raining, his head was in the clouds. These suicidal ideations had become almost his main objective. And since going to Amen Clinics, the weather's cleared up in his sky. You still have clouds that kind of float by, but he's not afraid to look up. There's no limit that should prevent somebody from getting the help that they need. And sometimes standard practice medicine is not going to be enough. And even if it's managed, that doesn't mean that they are living. If you want them to live, you have to look at the brain. That's really all there is to it. You have to look at the brain to help them.